guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm back today with another interview of a CSA Survivor. So as per usual, if you like my stuff, then like and subscribe to my channel and press the little bell notification so that you can be the first to know when my new videos drop every Thursday. Hi Louise, thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, that's fine. It's great to have you on. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your background, your family?
Yeah, okay. So I'm on the south coast in Dorset.
Lovely.
I've got two children. So I've got a 10-year-old boy and a 16-year-old girl, young adult, if you would say. So I'm 40 years of age. I'm married. That's the sort of personal stuff. It's sort of my work sort of life is now I do some volunteering in a rape and abuse and trauma centre in Dorset. So I've been volunteering there a couple of months. But yeah, we've got quite a successful business, so it's just enabled me to sort of branch out and help others. And yeah, it's quite rewarding, as you can imagine, being my time for free and go into an area which is really quite important to me. So,
And what's led you to carry out this volunteer work?
In September, I'm going to be studying level 4 diploma in counselling. When I was a child, I went through sexual abuse from the ages of 5 to 10. And for so long that controlled my life. I was really sort of rebellious, really just wild, and people judged me for that. And as I got older, I could start seeing it in like young adults who I thought had gone through similar stuff to me, but because I would just get a feeling and I could see how they were acting out. And so I just wanted to start working with children and young adults who've been the same as me. So I thought if I volunteer, I can give back. I can also get some experience, and then I can do my counselling as well. So that's basically as far as I've got at the moment. It's just turning that pain into power and using everything I've gone through to just help other people.
Which is an amazing thing to do, an amazing way to channel your trauma, to help others that have been through the same thing. So
Thanks.
you're welcome. So you mentioned from ages 5 to 10. So I assumed that your abuser was somebody that you knew.
Yeah, my abuser was a cousin, an older cousin. And yeah, we knew him very well. We were very close. Like my mum was really close to my auntie. We would all sort of hang around together. So yeah, it was definitely someone I knew. My mum and dad used to work, so sometimes we'd get left alone with him. And also, if my mum and dad would go out most weekends back then, that was kind of what my parents would have done. So we're looking at, like, I was born in 1981, so in the sort of middle of the 80s, we lived around the corner from a pub in Liverpool, and my dad would finish work and my mum and dad would go around there, and he would obviously come around to babysit. So that's how it all started, really.
Okay. And at what point did it end? Did it come to an end because you exposed it to your parents?
I never did while I was younger. So we moved from Liverpool to Dorset. My dad got a work opportunity down here, and that's when it finished, because obviously I'd moved away from him. His family then followed us down a couple of years later, and I was older then, so I was like 14, I think. And I'd gone down their house, they'd moved literally 3 houses up from us. And I went down to visit my auntie. Like, that's how it kind of was. I carried on as normal. And he approached me in the garden and said, like, what we used to do, would you do that again? And I was like 14 at this point. I knew what he'd done was wrong. And I basically told him Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
I
It's called, my channel's called Uncensored, so run away with
just so
yourself.
I know. But yeah, I told him to F off. And then his dad come out, and I must have been acting really weird, like just funny. And his dad was like, "What's going on?" And I just said nothing, and I went in. It wasn't until years later. I used to like go to college. I used to go out and drink quite heavily, and my dad was quite strict with me, and I always used to rebel. And obviously, I was rebelling against what happened. And one night, I just come home. I think I must have been about 19, and I've been out for like a couple of days with friends, and then I eventually come home, and my mum was like, "I'm getting really worried about like how much you're drinking with your studies and stuff like that." Mm-hmm. And I just kind of like blurted it out, what had happened. But there was other stuff that had happened in the years between that made that revelation. My mum and dad already knew, but they had never said anything about it to me. Okay. So my cousin approached me with my aunt, and they then went and spoke to my mum and dad, but they kind of like downplayed it and said it was like, which I would still have acted on this as a parent, but to my mum and dad back then, they were like, they dealt with it the wrong way. But yeah, my cousin and my aunt went to them and kind of said like it was a bit of like he tried to kiss me, and it was really downplayed to the abuse that actually took place. So because we then lost my brother passed away, my dad didn't want to bring it up, and he kind of just swept it under the carpet, which I knew that they knew. Yeah. So it just made it so much worse to deal with.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, how did that make you feel knowing that they knew and weren't taking any action against him?
It was really hard because I'd seen my dad deal with less things, things that weren't even as close to being how awful that was. Yeah. Like he was always this really strong man, and he always protected us as children. And if anyone ever hurt us, then my dad was always like the first to, go and see people and deal with things like how he did. Like he would, there was times that, some guy like hit my sister, and my dad went round there and dealt with it. Like I won't go into too much detail, but to then see that he hadn't dealt with this, I then started questioning like how important I was to my family. I also then started thinking, well, do they know how bad it was? And so when I was 19, that's when it all come out, and my mum and dad were literally like mortified. Yeah. For me, that is, it sounds awful, and because my dad's no longer here, but for me, that still wasn't good enough, because I would have acted on anything that my children told me. But I have to understand, I guess, that not everyone deals with stuff the way we do. Mm-hmm. And maybe because I've been through it, that might be why I'm so like, I'm all over it, with anything.
So obviously that gives you the drive, obviously, to listen to victims and take action against their abusers, and to help them as much as you can. And I'm sorry that you didn't get the response that you should have really got from your parents. Did any legal action or anything happen with the cousin, or was it all just sort of left in the end?
It was left, and that's something that, like, now I struggle to deal with. Like, it's one of those, like, I think, do I go through the whole rigmarole of dragging that all back up, what happened, or do I just do what I can in my power to continue my life, keep doing things that I can to help other people. I've always been really open with my children about my abuse since a really young age. I'm now doing things where I can help other children. He's living his life. His family found out, so he was married to another lady. And when it all did come out in the end within our family, his partner left him, his wife left him with his children, and his children don't have anything to do with him. But it is always something that I always think, like, should I have gone to the police about it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't done that.
Okay. But how much older was he than you, or is he than you? Sorry.
He was 17 from when I was 5. So
Wow.
yeah. The other thing is as well, so my mum was abused as a child. And I always think like when you look for signs, you know, when you see young girls act in certain ways, I was always like, that was probably things I was doing to like call out for help. So I always think with my mum, like, how did you not know? Like, why weren't you talking to me about your abuse? But then there's that generational thing, isn't there, where people say like, back the generations back don't deal with stuff how we kind of do now. We're using our voices to bring awareness. So I've had to go through like a lot of healing with my mum as well, because I didn't blame her for so long, but I guess in a way,
a slight resentment in a
I did resent her. I resented how they dealt with it. I resented even after the first instance where my auntie and him went and seen my parents, they still let him around our house. And I knew that they knew, but and they had never spoken to me about it, and it was just so hard. And so, as you can imagine, like how I was dealing with that was like I wasn't going home, I was drinking, I was doing drugs, I was being so promiscuous, like just looking for something to like fill that void. And so now that's the type of children or young adults I want to help who are going through that. And just raise the awareness. If someone had said to me when I was younger, you know, it's inappropriate to be touched like that, it's wrong, it's, you know, these people, because he used to say things like, if you tell your dad, because he knew my dad was a bit of a handy guy, he used to say, if you tell your dad, he'll kill you, he'll kill me, and like just manipulated me to think it was something I wanted and something that I was also to blame for.
Well, like you said, he said, you know, oh, can we, you know, pick up where we left off, kind of thing. Can we do the stuff that we used to do? Not, you know, not taking account that it was what he did to you, and at 5 years old, that's not something you could have consensually agreed to or should have even known about. So, yeah, I can
also just. Oh, sorry.
No, go on. No, you carry on.
And also, like, I started. So I wasn't promiscuous at 5 to 10, but I was definitely aware of my body more, and I believe that was because of what happened. And like, I used to do little dance shows and stuff, and my dad used to say things to my mum like, we're going to have problems with her when she's older. And I always think, like, how is that not a sign to a parent? But I guess
like where is she getting this behaviour from?
And I'm like, now, you know, with my 16-year-old and my 10-year-old, anything like you just do. I don't know if it's that with us talking about it, it's a safer space, but I'm literally over everything with my kids, like, you know, watching what they're doing. I try and not wrap them up in cotton wool, but I do as well. It's when you've gone through something like that, you can't help it.
And I think it's important, you know, these kind of conversations can just highlight to parents just to be more vigilant and be more, you know, open to watching out for signs from their kids, because your children aren't always just going to come out and say, as close as you think you may be to your child, they're not always going to come out and say to you, Mummy, this has happened to me, because they may have been threatened or, you know, like you were, that your dad's going to kill you if he finds out. So they may be scared to speak up in some ways. So to know what kind of signs to look out for and to pick up on behavioural issues and not just label that child as a naughty child or you know, as they're acting out, they usually are acting out for a reason. So it's really important that we have these kind of conversations with our children, and when they are acting out, just say, you know, what's wrong, like what's happened, you know, you can talk to mummy, and create that safe space for your child to open up and tell you things. So how have you found like your relationship with your children compared, well, not compared to your relationship with your parents, but how has what you've learned, like, you know, affected your relationship with your children? Are you like super close?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, it is a comparison, isn't it? Because it is the difference. Like, it has taught me so much. I believe that, you know, that there's a long history of various abuse in my family that goes back. So my mum was abused by an uncle. That was all swept under the carpet. My nan was abused. Then there was violence in the family. There was sexual abuse, mental abuse. And it just would have continued had I not, you know, I'm not saying had I not spoke to my children, but I just think like we have to protect our kids.
It's almost like you're breaking a cycle, or breaking like generational curses in a sense.
100%. And it made my mum uncomfortable that I spoke to my kids about my abuse. She was like, why do you need to tell them? So that was another process I had to go with her. But I think by speaking to my kids, they were more vigilant. I'm really close to both of them. You know, like, we have our issues, like most families will. But at least I know in that respect to things, I've done my job as a parent. Like, having those conversations isn't easy. Like, my friends would be like, do you not think she, you know, with my daughter, do you not think she's too young to be speaking to you about this? And I was like, the thing is, had someone stepped in with me at that age and spoke to me about it, I would have known. Like, I knew it was wrong. Like, it felt uncomfortable. It made me feel sick. It was horrible. But to be told, look, you'll be in a safe place if you come out and speak to this. That's all I wanted my children to know, because what these people do, and we see it on, you know, like Snapchat, the Omegle, the things like that. They're telling kids, you know, we know where you live, we will kill your family, or things like that. And it's like, if kids believe that, and they haven't had this conversation to say, look, if anyone ever says that to you, it's lies and you're safe with us. If we're not having those conversations with our kids, how are they to know that they're not being manipulated? How do they know that someone isn't watching their house? So, you know,
and like you said that your you know, your friend said, well, isn't your daughter too young to have those conversations? You were only 5 years old when you were being abused. So, you know, really, you were too young for all of the things that you were exposed to at that age. But at least the way that she's been exposed to it is having a positive effect on her, to know that, you know, these things can happen. This is what you've got to look out for. And, you know, if anything ever does happen, that you have to tell someone, you have to let me know. So, you know, the way that we talk to our children about this, you know, you don't have to say, he did this and that and go into the details about it, but just to raise, you know, a level of awareness within our children can prevent them from being abused, especially online in this technological age where it is so easy for children to be targeted online through chat rooms, through social media. They need to know when somebody is trying to manipulate them, and I do believe that.
Yeah. Like, I think I've always wondered, had, you know, my dad was very strict with me, and, you know, he was, you know, there was times that he would hit me as a child. And if I didn't have that fear about my dad, and he used that fear, like, he knew that as kids we were a bit scared of my dad and things like that, you know, like how he dealt with stuff. And like, he used that, my abuser used that against me. So it, you know, I've just always wanted my children to know there is nothing they can tell me that they ever have to be scared of. You know, if they've done something wrong, obviously there's always going to be some type of consequence. You can't let your kids just do stuff that's wrong and treat people badly and things like that. but they need to know that it's a safe space for them to be able to talk to you. And even now with my 16-year-old, if she's having problems with like friends or her boyfriend or things like that, it still takes some work getting that stuff out of her, because, you know, even without being scared and knowing she's got a safe space to talk to me or my husband, it's that fear, like we just naturally have, like, are we going to be judged? Like, you know, we're going to be judged for speaking our truth. Are we going to be judged for feeling jealous or angry and things like that? So I think that's just normal life. Then if you've got all the other stuff to deal with, it's really hard. And so I think by raising awareness on social platforms and by raising awareness in schools and your own children and with your family members, you are letting them know that these paedophiles and abusers are not safe. Like, they can't do this to children, and children should be feeling safe and they shouldn't be scared. You know, I used to, I don't want to get choked up, but I used to sit on my mum's bed, like, and I wanted, so, you know, when she was getting ready, watching her getting ready and stuff to go out, and I wanted so much to just say, I don't want you to go out. I don't want you to go, because I know that he was coming round. And that used to, that fear and that anxiety leading up to that was just awful. But you're just mute from the fear. You don't speak out. You just, you know, you do think that you're to blame. It's really, and that's awful that children feel like that. But, you know, even with the voluntary work I do, I read some of the notes, like the amount of children that are going through this with their own parents. Like, you know, I feel for these kids so much that are trapped in this environment, because although I'm dealing with that trauma, it's still so fresh, like that fear. You know, and that fear follows you through life. It follows me with my own children. And so I just think, like with the work you do with raising awareness and things like that, I just think hopefully that's going to give more children a voice. I wish I had that opportunity, but I didn't. So now my opportunity now is to speak about it now. To my own kids, to my nieces. You know, I'd never speak to my nieces without my sister's permission, but I think it's important to have these conversations with kids in your family.
Yeah, 100%, especially because for the most part, most of the time children are abused by somebody that they know, whether it be a family friend, a neighbor, you know, one of their parents. I filmed 2 interviews last week. Both of my interviewees were abused by their own father. And, you know, there has to be some kind of person for them to cry out to, or to say, you know, help me. So whether you have younger, you know, nieces and nephews and things, just be aware for them as well. You know, if you don't have kids of your own, and you're seeing behavioural issues in your nieces or nephews or anything, just, you know, just say to them, if there's anything you ever need to tell me, if there's anything wrong, you know, your auntie's always here, or just make yourself available to protect any child, not just, you know, not just our own children. We need to be looking out for all of God's children.
Yeah, we do.
And, you know, that's why I'm so grateful for you now channeling your trauma to help children that you don't know, through these charities and this charity work and your counselling work as well. It's really, really important, you know, what you're doing, and don't ever feel that, you know, you should have done something sooner. Everything happens at the right time for the right reason. You needed to, you know, be in the right place to really truly step into your power and to use it to help others. So I'm glad it's, you know, led you to that. I'm
a firm believer in that everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. If I tried to do this work 10 years ago, mentally I wouldn't have been in the right space.
That's the thing.
Definitely not. Still going through so many challenges. And yeah, you know, when I see things in the voluntary role, when I see things online, when I read some of the awful stories that kids go through, it does trigger me, because I'm human and because I have empathy, and it makes me sick and sad to the core that kids are going through this. I don't think it would be normal for me not to be triggered by it, but you know, you've just still got it's what you do with that trigger. You know, we will all. You wouldn't be normal if you didn't get angry about what happens to these kids, but it's what you do with that. You know, there's so much we can do, and I think the raising awareness and giving time, if you've got it. You know, I know for a lot of people they can't give their time, they're flat out with work and stuff, but if you can do anything in your community, like even just like you say, speaking to families, it's so important. And I think, you know, children have their intuition. Like my son he's so in tune with his intuition. He knows when something's not right. My husband jokes, and I know it's not funny, but my husband's like, he is so like you. Like, I'm gonna just say it, but like my husband always says, you've got like this pedo detector. I just get this horrible
radar,
feeling.
like, yeah.
But my son is the same. He's like, Mum, something isn't right. I took my son out of school, and I homeschooled him for a year before everything else started happening with schools closing, because he was getting really anxious about going into class. The teacher that he had was like getting boys to sit on his lap. And my son was like, Mum, it just doesn't feel right. It makes me feel sick. We intervened. We went into the school. The headmaster was not having any of it. And I just said to my husband, you know what? We are going to have to make do on your wage. I'm going to come out of work. And I homeschooled him for a year because I just trusted my own instincts. Like, I was starting to feel sick myself, dropping him off to school. There was a lot more in that happened, but that's just to give you sort of a brief outlet. And like the school just didn't want to know, because, you know, he was a trusted, great guy. But okay, that's fine. But why is he getting kids to sit on his lap?
Yeah,
and
but
like,
if anyone's ever watched any crime documentaries, any true crime documentaries, the lead, you know, person, whoever they're talking about at that time, everyone goes, you know, when it all came out that he was a paedophile, he was a serial killer, we just all couldn't believe it, because he was just this shining example of. So you just can't, you know, you can't just go off of. You know how somebody's personality is from the outside looking in.
Yeah, people do. I mean, there's so much we could go into, but then we'd be here all day. Like people who abuse their power. But so my son just knew, like he said, it doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right, and he started getting like just a bit anxious going to school and things like that. And I just said, nah, I've got to be able to trust these people looking after my kids. And so,
and the thing is as well, if he's anxious, he's not going to be able to put his head into his education and actually learn anything.
But you know, with that, I think as children, we know when we don't really like being around a person. We know, like, especially if you are, like I say, I'd say my son is like a bit of an earth angel. Like, he's very intuitive. He's very, very spiritual for such a young age. And like with him, he's very good at knowing when things and vibes aren't right. Even like if me and my husband have had words, like, and he's not been here, he'll walk in the room and he just is like, what's going on? Like,
picks up on the energy.
And I think we knock that out of children instead of like encouraging it, and instead of like saying to them, you know, use this. This is such a great power that you've got. We stop that, and as adults, we lose our intuition. We have to really then work so hard to get back in tune with it by doing things like meditating or just really sitting in calm spaces and really sort of
working on ourselves.
So. But if we just encourage that from a young age and trusted children, you know, don't get me wrong, kids do do tell fibs, they really do, but that's up to us as an adult to work with children to work out, you know, what the fibs are and what actually the truth is, because I think kids are just innocent, they're full of love, and I think we need to work with them more. Imagine if we did like work with kids and let them lead the way, we'd probably be living in a better world than what we are now.
Yeah,
because it all gets taken from us as we get older.
And Louise, can you tell us like some of the ways or some of the processes that you had to go through for healing?
Oh God, it's been messy. It's been so messy.
It's never linear. It's never a linear process.
No,
it's always,
it's not.
yeah.
And sometimes you think you're getting there, and then something can really just. I mean, I was never what you would call an alcoholic, but then I think if we're relying on alcohol for any sort of, you know, to anesthetize us, so to speak, I think like we are basically working with alcohol to try and help us with trauma. But I would never be someone like who woke up and drank. It would be like if I got a trigger, I would then polish off a bottle of wine, because I'd rather be drunk and not feel than feel the feelings that were coming up. But I had counselling shortly after I was 19. My mum and dad, after that situation with me going home to them, I had counselling, but I just wasn't ready. I was still wanting to just deal with my anger and sadness in different ways by going out partying and doing drugs and sleeping around. It was just, it wasn't great. It was awful. I didn't respect myself. I got into relationships where I was then raped by my boyfriend, who was a complete like, just an awful person. And so I went through like that probably until I met my daughter's dad when I was 21, and we were together for a few years, and I was quite settled then, but I was just still like not addressing the issues. And then I told him about my abuse, and he was really shocked. And then he was like, I think we should get you some therapy. Again, I went through that and I wasn't ready. And then my dad passed away in 2013, and I had counselling, and it was really successful. I only had something like 12 sessions. So that was that. I had the counselling, that was quite successful. But it was really then after that the inner work started to happen, just by reading more books on healing, meditating, sitting with the pain. So when things were coming up, emotions were coming up, not turn into a glass of wine, you know, not trying to other escapism, so recreational drugs, going out,
confronting your fears.
Yeah. So, and now I can honestly say I'm not triggered by my abuse at all. I read somewhere the other day that someone said we shouldn't forgive our abusers, and I totally agree. I think these people should be put down, but my forgiveness wasn't really about him. It was about me moving on. So I don't forgive him for what he did to me, but I have to forgive the past, so to speak. And so I don't think that people who've been through abuse should have to forgive the people, but I think they have to make peace with the past. And so that's what I've done. And to be honest now, unless I think about my relationship with my mum, I can talk about all aspects of my abuse with him, the things that he did to me, and I no longer feel sad for that child that I was, because I've made peace with that. Which took me a long time, but it was the only thing that really helped me to move on from it.
Yeah. Okay. So you did find the counselling like really, really helpful. And
I did. So because with the counselling, my counsellor helped me understand how that led to me then having promiscuous relationships. how it led to me drinking to deal with the pain. What I do feel with, and this is not going to be for everyone, what I do feel with counselling is you're going back to the past to deal with what's happened. And I just think, like, for me personally, that the past isn't where I want to be. Like, I want to be either in the moment or thinking about the exciting things that are going to happen in my future. He's no longer in my life. He's not in my present, unless we're talking about it now. But he's also not in my future. And I just think sometimes by going back to that pain, what is that serving? Mm-hmm. Like, to go back and talk about the things that happened, which my counsellor had me doing, it just manifested so much negative energy in me in that moment, in that counselling session. I'd come out and I'd be zapped for like a good couple of days. Yeah. And so, but I guess I had to go back there to deal with it. But I just think, I don't know, for me, it's more about, I want to think more about positive things, and I just don't feel like going backwards in life is doing that.
So was it around that time that you got inspired to pursue a career in counselling, or was that a more recent thing?
No, so that was 2013 when my dad passed away. The counselling is definitely a more recent thing. I think since the beginning of the pandemic, I just want to like reach out. I've learned so much. I've researched so much. I follow people like you and Sam and things like that. And I just think, like, for me, it's really spurred me on to want to do good. I think there's so many women at the moment who have got bigger balls than men, who are really shining a light. I don't get me wrong, I know you're all very close to Adam, aren't you? He's amazing, Adam Whittington. There is amazing guys that are doing such amazing work.
You are right, though. It is predominantly being fronted by the women. Yeah. And they are leading, and even Adam himself calls out, where are the men? Where's the men at? Stand up. And there's no shame in doing what we do. No shame whatsoever. Because you're a male, you can still channel your divine feminine side. We've all got the divine feminine and the divine masculine within us. It doesn't make you less of a man to stand up for people and to care for people and to do what it is that we all do. So that's something that Adam especially calls out. Where are the men? I know there is guys out there that are doing their bit, but quite frankly, if I'm being honest, I don't see enough of them, and I think that's because there's just a stigma attached to it, and that's one thing that we've got to try and break.
Yeah, definitely. I think there is, and I think, like, even with some of the messages and stuff Adam shares, guys kind of like message him and thank him for the work that he's doing, because, like you said, I think they're so worried about what people will, like all these influencers and stuff, they're worried about what people think about them if they're raising awareness around stuff like this. But this is where we need it to be raised. Like, for me now, I want that's the type of accounts that, when my daughter sort of wants to, I want her to be following things like that. They're the real influencers of the world, the people who are doing good. So I
think there's a new name for us now. We're no longer influencers. People doing what we do. We're impactors.
Yeah, you are
impactors, which I like better.
Better than being called a conspiracy theorist, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
people. I can't believe there's people. There's even people in my family who are still so ignorant to it. Like, and I'm like, this is happening, and like, this has happened to me in our family. Like, you would never have believed it. But I just think so many people still want to just brush things under the carpet. It's too uncomfortable for them. And I think, like, you don't have to have gone through stuff like this to raise awareness and do the work. And, you hear, and you must hear it a lot, well, what can I do? What can I do? And I just think, like people get more bothered by stuff that is really not important. It might be important to them, but I
don't think there's any more. For me, there is no more anything more important than our younger generation, than our children here on this earth.
Yeah.
And protecting them at all costs comes as my highest priority. And it really baffles me, and I really struggle to see sometimes how people aren't either passionate about protecting children, or are so willing just to turn a blind eye to the things that are happening to children. So, you know.
There's some great, you know what, the charity that I work with, they're amazing. We've got something like 80 volunteer counsellors on our books that are all giving their time, and that's just in Dorset. I think it's just East Dorset as well. So there are people who do amazing things. It's just not spoken about enough. Like, I didn't even know about the charity that I worked for until I started having a look into it. And so I actually had a reading, like an angel card reading with a chap on Instagram. He's amazing, and he was like, this is definitely the work you need to be doing, and he didn't know anything about like anything until I come on there, but he was like, yeah, this is definitely the work you should be doing, and that was also something that prompted me to do it. So people who do this work,
it does feel so good. It feels good to do what we do, even though we come across and we have to learn about the most heartbreaking situations. When we make a difference, even just in one person's life, it is the best feeling. And to know that you are doing everything that you possibly can to fight for children, the people that, you know, they're vulnerable, they can't fight for themselves, they can't stand up and advocate the way that we can as adults. There's, for me, no better feeling than to do that for them. And I'm sure you feel the same.
Yeah, I just think they're like earth angels, the people that do this work. There's so many incredible people who are doing this work, and I think the more we speak about it, I mean, when I've spoke about my abuse on my stories and on my Instagram, it's amazing how many other people then private message me and say thank you for showing up today, because I would never have thought something like that had happened to you. Like, people who've met me in sort of my personal life, they're like, you would never know that had happened, and actually this has happened to me. And like, you're then like, oh my God, that happened to you? Like, I would never have thought that of you. You know, everyone wears their armour so well, and I think, you know, these are people who
open
also
up
say
conversations.
families, and I think that's so important. And then maybe by doing that, they'll release that shame, and then they can start talking to their children about it. Because whilst you're in a place of shame and guilt and you blame yourself, you don't want to talk to people about it. And so it's dropping that stigma that the people who have been abused either asked for it, or that they were to blame, you know, your children, and that can carry you through life. Like I said, I was so promiscuous. I was just doing stupid things that were quite dangerous, getting myself involved, you know, like with men that just weren't good for me, and I knew it, but this was like this horrible thing. I had this attachment to men that weren't treating me right. And so now I've got a great husband, he's amazing, and I can talk to him about all of the stuff that's happened. But I just think that stigma of somebody who's been abused needs to be dropped. And it needs to be spoken about in schools. At the moment, we're doing, through the charity that I'm working with, we're doing this like non-consent workshop in schools. So at the moment, we're just going around the schools in our local area and speaking to like the sort of year 9. So that in Dorset is 14 upwards. I still think that is sort of intervention and not prevention. I think we should be tackling these kids younger, but it's just about like.
Well, if we can teach them sex education from 5 years old, then we can certainly do this from 5 years old.
I think, that's what I think. And so you know, some of the things then, like men.
Also, why isn't this being a part of the curriculum with sex education, you know?
Yeah, it makes you question it, doesn't it? It really does make you question it. There's so much stuff that they're sending emails home from my son who's 10, and I'm like, he's not doing that.
Yeah.
Like he's not ready for that. Like he doesn't need to be learning about that yet.
Yeah.
But and it's very draining. Like they're teaching them really about like hard drugs, like some of the drugs that my son said to me that was on this list that they were learning. Like, okay, I know obviously kids do start doing drugs at 10, but like I was like, what is that? I've never even heard of that. So they're teaching kids about drugs at 10 years old. Why are they not teaching them about, you know, being able to speak to adults if something bad's happening to them?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, when we were in these schools, like again, when I've got this like pedo detector that my husband calls it, you're literally just looking at some of the kids and thinking, God, like if I could just hug you. You don't know why, but as an empath, I just look at some of the kids' faces and I think some of them just need love right now. And for whatever reason that is, obviously it's been a tough 18 months, but some of the things the girls were telling us about being catcalled in their uniforms, like nearly every girl in the classroom put their hand up. And these are young girls. They don't look older and they're in school uniforms. Do you know what I mean? Like, and nearly every one of them put their hands up. Like, it's rife out there and people just want to ignore that. So
yeah,
shame on the adults that want to bury their head in the sand is what I think.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, just opening up conversations about it can get other people talking about it. I've actually mentioned previously on one of my previous podcasts that through me doing my work, then influenced PD Protect to open up her account, who's done massive clear outs of thousands of predatory Instagram accounts. She's you know, got links in with Instagram to get rid of those. So my work inspired hers. She then inspired Child Protection Project to launch their page as well. And then it's a knock-on effect. So the more of us that talk about it, and the more that we spread awareness, and the more that we, you know, put our apprehensions around our you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I've had a mental blank. Reputation, or our personal guilt or our personal shame around our own situations. We really can open up the conversation and inspire other people to get the help that they need, or to speak out, or for them to then help others. And I just know there's so many people that are willing to help other people. But they just need some form of direction or some form of inspiration to move into the field that they're supposed to be working in, you know?
And that's the thing, isn't it? You're just encouraging other people. It's a positive domino effect. And the domino effect can happen in so many ways, like in negative ways. So you're doing this in a positive way. I know the lady who does PD Protect. We live in the same area, and I love that. Yeah, we just started chatting on Instagram, and she's like, I know that beach. Like, that's my beach. And I was like, and we've met up and we've had lunch and stuff together. She's
amazing, isn't she? I love her. Yeah, I've met her a few times.
Yeah, she's lovely. So, but yeah, like you said, you're inspiring other people to do these things. And as long as people are doing good with it, you know, there's people who are saying they're raising awareness, but I think they have issues and you know, do it for attention. So trying to work out what accounts and what people are doing it for the greater good, and not just to do it for their self-worth.
I mean, I have come across a few people, and I don't want to mention any names, but certain people going to protests with like holding a child protection sign or having a child protection t-shirt, but then tying it up to make it look sexy, and to, you know, and then to stick their bum out on social media while they're holding a sign about raising awareness for children. And I just think, just make it about the kids. That's what it's about. It's not about you. It's not about you. Yeah, if you've, you know, been through CSA, then it is a bit about you because, you know, but generally it's about the kids. It's not a thing about image. No one's doing this to, you know, to get any personal gain out of this. It is all about the children. So yeah, you've got to kind of weed out the ones that are really in it with the right intentions. But I mean, even the ones that aren't, we've got to kind of just go, do you know what, even though I can see that you're clearly not in it for the right intention, at least you are spreading awareness, I suppose, and the message is still getting out there either way. So
I've got to just think like good should prevail. Like I'm not overly like, I couldn't even say that I'm not a Christian. I don't practice, I don't go to church, but I believe that there is some higher power. And I just believe with everything that's happening at the moment, that this is like good is going to prevail.
Yeah, I feel like we're moving into that frequency.
Yeah, I definitely do. And so people who are not doing it for the right reasons, like you say, they're still raising awareness, but eventually,
they'll drop out.
Because they can't continue it because they're not passionate for the right reasons. Like they're not coming from the right space, and that space is just to protect children, and so that children can just feel loved and safe.
Yeah, I agree.
Dog in the background. He's so gorgeous.
He's like, protect me, please. Like, no, you're fine. He just cries.
They all sit the same. French bulldogs all sit the same, like little humans. I swear they are.
Yeah, bless him. Well, Louise, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for your honesty and your bravery, and, you know, giving people and inspiring people to go, do you know what, I've been through something, but look at this lady, like she's absolutely glowing. You're absolutely beautiful, by the way, I must say. It's okay. And you've just got this lovely aura and this lovely glow about you, and you can just really tell that you're strong within yourself now. So you're going to be a massive inspiration for people who have been through similar things, to know that, you know, if I just do the work and get through this, I can get through this, and I can, like Louise, channel what I've been through to help other people, which, you know, is going to bring you so many life rewards, and really help you on your healing journey. So thank you, Louise, so much.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. I mean, obviously it's a difficult subject to talk about, but I just think we can either stay in victim mode, or we can do something with it. And that's what I want to do. You know, I'm not here to like try and inspire people. I'm just here to try and give people courage to do what I'm doing and share their knowledge and hopefully help kids out of a place that they shouldn't be in. So
yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.